Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for coming back, and as always, huge massive thank you for the support. Just quick one to say happy Easter to you all. Hope you all had a lovely time, whether you celebrate or not. You know, it's still a couple of days off out of the norm usually for most of us, and hopefully you had a nice time being able to do anything that you wanted to do. But I'm coming back again today with the last little play with this bouquet of gnomes. This is the pocket pad that came part of the ultimate bundle for the members free gift. So you've got your sort of pocket pad with your little gnome images in. You can buy this separately. I suspect this one will be around for a while because it is so super cute. You can see just as I'm flicking through some of the images, this image has been really popular. They did a lot with that in the kit. Little daffodil man, little guitar one, but yeah, sort of happy daisy, and then you've got your gnome with a bouquet behind him, and then you've got this cute guy on the swing. I think that's pretty much all of them, but you get 4 of each, so plenty there to be decoupaging up. So that's that. The other thing is, I was having a bit of a tidy up and I came across all of these sort of offcuts of gold. So I was trying to think of a way that I can use these up. So what I've decided to do today is do 2 A5 cards, try and use a little bit of that gold up, and obviously we'll move on from there. But I mean, you don't have to do 5x5 cards with this. You know, you could go 6x6, you could go 8x8, maybe put 2 on, or 4, you know, loads of different ways you can use that pad. So what I'm going to do is bring in a piece of, this is A4 Adorable Scoreable from, well, it would have been either last year's or the year before's Adorable Scoreable, so it's not this year's colours, but it's kind of like a really pale peach colour. So I'm going to start by cutting this to 5 inches. This will go into my foiling box for foiling onto. And then we're going to cut that to 10 inches. Again, that's going to go to the foiling. And this one I'm going to do as a stepper. So I'm going to cut from 1 to 6. And then I'm going to turn that around and do the same on that other side. 1 to 6. And then I'll move that blade out of the way, pop that at the 5. And then just pop that score line in the middle just so it's easy to find it in a second. So if I pop that away and bring in the scoreboard. And then I'm going to score 1 inch up to the line, 2 inch up to the line, and 6 inch up to the line. Then I'm just going to turn that over and do the same on the other side. 1 inch. Just going a little bit careful because it's not quite as slippy as on there. And then what we'll do is at the 5 inch, we'll just give that another little go over in the middle, so we've got a nice deep crease there. There. And then we can start to just ease these into place. Bringing it down. Squishing that in. And along. What I'm going to do is just make sure that lines up nicely, and I'm just going to give that a burnish down, burnish down, burnish down, and a burnish. And then you're going to end up with this super cute mini stepper. So if I bring my cutter back in, and let's start with some of these smaller pieces. And if I grab some tape tape as well. So across here is 1 by 5. So I'm just going to secure that at 2 notches under the 1. And then if I just save that for in a minute, 2 notches under the 5. So that's going to be that piece there. And then if I take another one of these smaller pieces, and this again needs to be 2 notches under the 1. There, and then this one, because it's this side piece here, needs to be 2 notches under the 4. So that one's going to go into there like so. Hopefully going to get the second piece out of here. Actually, that's cut that 2 size. Let's just check that that is the same as that. Oh, that couldn't have worked out better if I tried. So those pieces are 1 by 4, so 2 notches off there. Then this piece in the middle is a 3 by 4. So let's take one of these slightly bigger pieces. And we'll go 2 notches under the 3 by 2 notches under the 4. And that's going to go onto there like so. Now for decoration, for this one, I'm going to go with this blue one, blue and pink. So for the bottom piece again, we need a piece that's 3/4 of an inch by 4 3/4. Just put that to the side. Just didn't seem quite straight to me, but we'll see how it looks. Could do just a tiny bit off one end. We'll do that with the guillotine. And then these pieces here again are going to be 3/4 of an inch. So let's cut that one down, and then they need to be 3 3/4. So that one's going to go in there. And again, we just got really jammy with that. So that one's going to go into there. And then for the centerpiece, I'm just going to use a bit of this that was left over. So that needs to go to 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of this, so probably could do with not using it, but we will see how we go. But that's going to go into there. So we've got the yellow, the blue and the pink. And then for this one, I think we will go with, should I go with that one, Guitar Man, or should I go with, so there's 2 that I've sort of decoupaged up, well not decoupaged, I just cut another layer out. So him and this one. So let's pop that out the way. Let's see. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that. Let me measure this up. Let's grab another piece of gold. So it is 1 notch under 3. So I'm going to cut this to 1 notch over 3. And then lengthways it is going to be 4 1/4. And that doesn't look long enough to get the second piece out of that, but that should be fine. Okay, so that's going to go on there. We just double check that one. Yeah, that one is a bit short. We might just trim that down and use that as it is. We'll see when we get to the next card. Now, what I did want to do is just have a little trim with this. Let me bring in a piece of gold. So if I butt that up to the bottom, push this off the edge. That there was just that tiny bit that was just a little bit not quite straight. Mind you, that doesn't look great either. Let's go back to another piece. Try again. Okay. So rather than measure it, what I'm going to do is just, because it's very hard to measure on this one because of it being the guillotine, the length is going to be fine. Let's just try that again. So that should be 4 3/4. Let's see if that's a bit straighter. That one just looked a bit on the wonk. Yeah, I'm happy with that one. Okay. So now we can start to pop these together. So the glues I'm going to be using my my permanent dot tape pen, because a lot of this is paper. I'm going to be using my Clout all-purpose glue, and I'm going to be using my tacky glue as well. But let's start off with this one. A little bit of those dots on each end. A little bit of that all-purpose along the middle. And then we can pop this in, so it should just, it doesn't grab too quick. So the good thing about those dots is that you do get that ability to just pop them up and pop them back down again. So if you like to flap a bit like I do, that's going to be fine for there. It's perfect. So these do have a right way, so just keep an eye on this one when you're popping it down. Down, it's getting empty. Okay. For purpose again. So it's just keep on going with your mattins and your layerings even. Pop those in. And then this one, and you can see how little card really it's taken, you know, because we've got that, and this could be just a piece of A4 white card that you've started off with. I think I did sort of say at the beginning of the year that I've got quite a lot of adorable scoreable that I do want to try and use up in different ways, so you will see me using it a little bit more this year than I have done previously. And this is just a great way to do that. Again, just maneuvering that into place. And then with these pieces, as always, what I say to you is just make sure it looks good at the top on these, because you're not going to see the bottom at all. it will be hidden by the bend of the card. So make sure your good ends are at the top. So quite important if you've got a directional sort of pattern like this. There we go, you can see that's starting to look quite pretty as it is. Now this is going to come down over that side and down, so I'm going to leave it with just the tiniest border at the top, and I'm going to bring in a couple of foam pads. These are just 1mm ones. Might have to grab a few more. One there. Just find where I buried them. Oh, there we go. So I just want a nice amount to support this. So a little bit of tacky glue just to give me that wiggle room time, although it's really only lining it up at the top that I need to do. Straighten that up because we won't need that again for a minute. So that's how we are looking at the moment. Now, like I said, I did cut him out, and I did also cut these little butterflies. So I'm going to come again with these 1mm foam pads, nice and shallow. Scissors. Just put a nice amount on there because this is paper. You do want it to sort of have a nice amount of support. Just get these backs off. I'm going to grab my purple glue stick. And then if I squash that down, I can just bring him around so he is coming off that page. And then we just want a little piece for these. Oops, stuck to me. Butterflies. Here we go. I'm not going to put any glue on the back of this. I'm just going to hope we are spot on. And he is going to go on to there. And this one is going to come round to thinking this might not be the right one. Ooh, hang on just a second. No, it's not. Let me pop that one on there so I can just see, because this one's got a darker wing on that side, so this one has the paler wing. That's only because I've cut them out at the same time that I've got mixed up, but by putting it on there it's going to retain that sticky, so I'll be able to use that perfectly on the next one. And if this doesn't stick to the table, you can see this one matches in a bit better. Well, a lot better because it is the same one. Okay, so that's our little decoupaged piece. Now the sentiment I did steal from the 2019 book. I've got this one, which is You're to a Very Special Friend. Not quite sure where that one's decided to go on the wonk. It wasn't a minute ago. Okay, I'll sort that in a bit. This one I'm just going to come in with a 2mm foam pad, and it's kind of a sort of pale colour. Okay, so there's that, and then just to finish I'm going to come in with some blue gems. And I'm going to go with these deep blue ones. Pop one. And two. And we'll have a three, why not? And then we'll have a medium one. Actually, we'll have it on here. Smaller. Been a bit cack-handed, as my mum would say, today. Probably because I've had a couple of days of no crafting. Okay, so that's going to be that one finished. So let me just pop those away, and I just bring it forward so you can see it. But that is our first little cute 5x5 little stepper. You see it works quite well with that one. It does fill up that whole space. If you didn't want it to fill up the whole space, what you could do is just have it as a side. So just do one of these little steps at the side, and then have a 4x5 piece here, and then there would be a bit of a frame for it. But that is that card there. So we're just going to get set up for card number 2. So for card number 2, I've got another piece of adorable scorable that again is from a previous year. This one is, it's not quite green, it's a creamy yellow, but it has got like that little green tinge to it. And I'm just going to make a little 5x5 tent fold with it. So again, we're just going to cut that down to 10x5. Again, those little pieces will go in my foiling box, but you could use them for borders, that sort of thing, or you might just want a smaller panel. So they do still come in useful. I mean, that is, you know, a couple of inches wide. That's what, just over 3 inches. So you know, it could be perfect for something like that. But what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and put a little 5-inch score in there. Just give that bend over. You can see beautifully folded, no creasing, no cracking. Beautiful. I love the adorable scorable for that. So we need a mat that's going to be 2 notches under the 5 by 2 notches under the 5. So that end was just a little bit dented, so I'm just going to take a little bit off there. So 2 notches under the 5 by 2 notches under the 5. So that's going to be our main piece. And then the paper I'm going to be using is this one. So we're going to cut this to 4 3/4. I'm just going to go across there. I just tidy up those edges with the guillotine. They are a little bit fluffy, So we've got our, I found another piece of gold. So let's just see, I think that was 4 1/4 it needs to go to. Yes, 4 1/4. I will just take a little piece of that with the guillotine as well. I do want a little border coming across. I'm just going to grab, this looks about right. Let's go 4 3/4. And this is 3/4 of an inch. So let's just take that to 2 notches under 3/4. And then to 4 3/4. We've got our little daisies. Oops, got the gold side, that might help. That's going to go across there. And then I've got from an older little book of sentiments, I've got a thank you for everything you've done. I think probably the white is going to be better than the green. And then a couple of gems. We'll round the corners on that as well. So let me bring in my guillotine. So what I wanted to do was just take the tiniest bit off here. There we go, that's fine. And then I just wanted to defluff the edges of this. So you can see how thin that is. What's the other one I cut? It's that one. That should be fine. Get rid of those. Oops. Before I forget, I'm going to bring in the corner rounder on here just for a little bit of interest. And if you didn't want to use a gold mat, what you could do is bring in one of your old frames. You know, if you take out those middle frames, something along, you know, these sort of lines, and then you could just glue that in. Maybe take the decoupage piece coming out over the top of it would be quite cool. But you've got options there. Obviously that's a black one, you might want a gold one or a silver, whatever you want to use. But today I'm using this square one. So that is looking pretty good. Okay, so let's do some assembling. So again, I'm going to be using dots on most of these papers. And because it is that sort of check pattern, that sort of gingham if you like, on there, it doesn't have a right or a wrong way, although the daisies probably do. If you haven't got any of these papers, if you didn't happen to get the insert and paper pack, there is a duo design book, which is Charm and Check, I think. They would have loads of patterns that would go beautifully with these images. I think I have said that before. I think there's other ones as well which have got sort of check and you know, these sort of gingham patterns in. It's just have a look through whatever books you have and see what you fancy to go with it. Okay, so it's just a little long on that side of the paper, so let's just neaten that up, and then this one onto here. And if you didn't fancy doing the little stepper card 5x5, you could always go for one of those pop-up centre ones. That would look pretty cute. I was umming and ahhing whether to do that as a second one, but then I thought no, I'll keep it nice, really nice and simple, and go with just a normal little 5x5. So let's bring And again, you could be using your white card. I've just gone with these just to A, use it up, and B, just for a slightly different look. There we go, so we've got that one. And then this one I'm going to come across, I'm going to do that one flat. So again, actually I'll use the dots on this one and the all-purpose again. And you could be using your edge-to-edge foils on here, you know, all those sort of things. Just taking it to the next level. Probably if you're just having a little bit of a sneezing fit. So I've decided to go a little low with that today. Let's come in, actually let's use some of these Hunkydory. I think these are 2mm ones. So I'll just use these up. You can see they're a bit sticky, they've been left out. So that's why it's a good idea to just get those used up today. Along the bottom, and there we can get rid of that. Another bit of rubbish gone, and then hopefully that should sit quite nicely in there. Yes, it does. Oh, we've still got a little bit there. Where can we put that just to use it up? There we go. Okay, so let's see if we can get the backs off these. And insert. And I'm going to use the purple. Okay, just to give us a bit of wiggle room time. And then we can just pop a little guitar playing gnome in. And then we have got the decoupage. Now, shall I use, I think I have got some more Hunkydory ones here. I think those are 1mm, those are 2. No, let's use my 1mm ones then. Oh no, here we go. I'll have some somewhere. So these are again 2mm and squares. Let's grab some scissors. Bit of support to his hat, to his guitar, to his little shoes, and I do want to pop a bit on there as well for that guitar. And what you'll see is I've cut away the pegs. I've not done any real detail cutting around this. I've just really basically gone around the shape. So the good thing about that is, you know, because we're putting it onto the background, it's not, you're not going to see it, you just see the whole image anyway. And even if you were going to not put him on the back image, you know, the person would just think that was how it was meant to be anyway. So you just do as much as you can. So here he goes, and we've got our butterfly somewhere as well. Find that in just a second. There we go. So he's really quite prominent, this guy. with this one, and just need to see, what did I do with that butterfly? I might have to live without the butterfly because I might have thrown it away. Okay, butterfly's gone. Okay, so let me just check with my little book here if there's a smaller one. We've got a You're So Lovely. I do want something a little bigger than that. It does need to be gold. Nephew, husband, daughter, special wish to my sister-in-law, fabulous mum, sent with love. Thank you so much. Bravo, you did it. You see most of the gold ones I've taken out of here. We might have to stick with that thank you, even though it's a little bigger than I would have liked. Maybe I can just chop it. Bring it in. Yeah, I prefer that, to be honest. Okay, let's pop some 1mm pads on because I want it to come underneath there. That's good. So let's just pop these off. Use the, oops, lost it. Tried to catch it, missed. Put that one up there. Then we want some nice green little gems. So let's bring my favourite gems of the moment out. And let's go for these deep ones because I think it's going to take it. So let's pop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and let's see, where can we pop this one? No, we're going to have to leave it like that. So even number today. And then the last thing I want to do, I did it on one of the others, but it was the topper on the other one. So let's grab a little bit of, use a bit of card, and then I want my little quickie glue pen. I'm just going to bring going along the strokes of his hair, a little bit under there as well, and then a little bit of glitter. You could do it on the flowers as well if you want to. Now you would let that dry, and then you can use it just a fine brush just to brush off any excess. is, and that's Glamour Dust. It was super sparkly. Used about a quarter of it in about 4 years. But that is going to be card number 2, just a little tent fold card. So that's quite cute. Let me bring back in number 1. So our little stepper card there. I will put pictures up on Pinterest. I have been really naughty. I haven't put any of the members free gift up on Pinterest yet. I am going to be working through them next week. I have been just a little bit busy and also just slacking off a bit, to be honest with you. I just haven't been working as hard as I usually do. But it's good to have a little bit of a breather. But that's it. So next time, coming back with that beautiful stained glass wonderful wildlife. I did do some cards as part of the design team on that one. But I'm going to be making completely different cards, more like the cards I make for the videos, rather than being those sort of all-out sort of showstopper ones. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye.